The recent Sonic Central showcased to us some more stuff on the new Sonic X Shadow Generations game, like what it intends to do with the PS5 controller to make you feel like you're actually in the game, and even gave us new looks on the animated shorts of Dark Beginnings, and even with a release date. It also gave us a story trailer for the main game. It showed us a lot of exciting stuff, but something that's been wondered, and it would be really cool if they did it in the game. Will we get a final story? Let's talk. Just a reminder guys, I am working on an animated recreation of the Sonic Movie 3 trailer entirely in SFM. It should be done in October, so be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss it. The trailer to the story of Shadow Generations was fantastic. I love seeing all the new story moments, like Maria seeing Shadow in the tube from his origins, Shadow meeting Black Doom again, seeing new footage of stages, although I've noticed a lack of rail canyon. Mephiles was shown off, which, oh my god, that was amazing. I talked about him in my potential bosses video, which if you haven't watched that yet, I recommend that you do so. I'll leave a link in the description and in the card that's on the corner. The bits of dialogue, while I'm still not a big fan of Kirk Thorne as Shadow, this is one of his more better performances, especially since he now knows stuff about the character. And then the ending part where it looks like Shadow and Maria are gonna reunite in white space. The overall trailer gets me more excited than I already am for Sonic X Shadow Generations. As of right now, we know there's two plots in the game, Sonic Generations, which we already knew for obvious reasons, and the brand new plot of Shadow Generations. Sonic games in the past have done final stories when we get more than one storyline to play. We haven't seen a final story in a Sonic game since Sonic 06, or if we want to get technical, Sonic and the Black Knight. While not to the exact same extent like SA1, 2, Heroes, and Shadow in 06, they did almost make some think, myself included, that when Sonic defeated King Arthur, that was it, game's over. Only to surprise us with one last story to go through, much like the games before it have done. I miss when Sonic games had multiple stories, and then a final story once the others were completed. It's part of why I love the stories of Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2. While Sonic Generations was never intended to have multiple stories, the fact we've got Shadow Generations just opens up the doors for the story potential. Some of the things that make it seem that we could get a final story is because, firstly, it was confirmed that both stories take place at the same time. Previous games in the franchise that had multiple playable storylines all took place at the same time. While yes, that was always intended from the start, it doesn't mean a game getting a new story later can't have a final story. Secondly, we got this piece of artwork where we see Sonic and Shadow in both Speed Highway and Radical Highway walking towards both the Time Eater and the new form that Black Doom takes, where it looks like both sides are combining and they have to work together. Classic Sonic is missing other than being Modern Sonic Shadow, so this could be something that happens right at the end of both sides. Lastly, we have this brief clip from the PS5 trailer of the game where we see Sonic and Shadow fight like the rival battle from the original Sonic Generations game. So with Shadow's campaign, it could mean a change in what was supposed to happen, as that's something the concept of time travel always faces, which we've seen be the case in previous Sonic games and stories like Sonic CD, 06, and even in the comics. Some wonder about Classic Sonic's presence. Other than the Sonic Generations side of things and the minor improvements we see to his gameplay, we don't see him very much, unlike modern Sonic. With Sonic Generations' ending being Classic Sonic and Tails returning back to their time, the final story may not see Classic Sonic at all, which in my opinion is probably for the best, as their story wraps up very nicely. Sure, he was a big part of Sonic's story and the main aspect of the gameplay. Classic Sonic, in my opinion, doesn't really do much other than for people to say, oh, it's Sonic from the past. Plus, the last time we saw Classic Sonic was in Forces, and he was useless to the whole plot of that game, where you could have taken him out and it wouldn't have made any sort of impact. With that said, I think we won't see Classic Sonic come back in a final story. We've got one Sonic, and that's all we really need. Of course, the biggest factor to us currently not knowing if there's a final story is very simple. They don't want to spoil it. Sure, some felt seeing the part of Maria in the white space potentially reuniting Shadow was a bit too much, but that's just to get us hyped to see if that actually is the outcome. We know we will see other characters in Shadow's white space hub world, as people found Omega in the trailer from Summer Game Fest, and it wasn't exclusive to characters with Shadow in the present, like in Sonic's story, where we saw Shadow and Silver and Metal Sonic, who weren't at Sonic's party in the beginning, and later we see Silver and Shadow at the party. Sega wouldn't spoil a reveal of a final story that ties it all together. They didn't the previous games that had final stories, so why would this be any different? With all of this and how past titles have handled it, we could see both generations' plots make the biggest difference, and honestly, I would love to see this leading to Sonic and Shadow teaming up for one final battle to save all of time. Imagine if Black Doom morphed together with the Time Eater. While yes, Sonic Generation shows us Time Eater differently, and we see both classic and modern Eggman taking control, we do see briefly that Time Eater does exist as its own entity, and with Shadow Generations, this could rewrite everything, and it's up to Sonic and Shadow having to save time for all we know. We could even see Super Sonic and Shadow again, which we haven't seen in a game together since 06. God, there's a lot of things done that hasn't been done since that game, hasn't there? Before I wrap up this video, I would just like to remind everyone that I'll be at the Sonic Symphony Saturday, September 28th in London at the Apollo Theatre. If you're going, feel free to say hello and have a chat before the show. We won't know until the game's out if there will be a final story or not, and maybe I'm completely off about all of this, but it would be so cool if there were to be a final story to tie things up again. But what do you think? Do you think there'll be a final story in the game, and would you want there to be a final story in Sonic X Shadow Generations? Let me know in the comments below, and yeah, we'll just go from there. So I thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, and TikTok, which will be linked in the description down below, and I will see you all in the next video. So until then, take care, bye bye.